unverifiable voting in 2000.
Like you said to Trump, but they're getting beauty.
They said, go out there and rob these houses and bring back the bounty, and then that'll pay your way.
Because Republicans who get endorsement from Georgia carry that they mean anything.
You can't sit on the sidelines any longer. You must get involved in the game. This is your sign. All right, good evening, everybody. Welcome to Small Town Underground. Wow, what a freaking show that we have planned for you guys tonight. As you can see with me, I have a special, very special guest that I would have never guessed in a million years to be sitting across from me in the studio today. But I am here with Mr. Josh Pruitt, who is Pardoned J-6er. Recently, that was just recently pardoned in January, and today he has been gracious enough to come to the studio and share his story with us. So I just want to say how honored that we are to be with you today, and for you giving us the opportunity to help share your story. I can't wait. I've been doing a little bit of research on you. I'm fixing to order your book. And so I'm going to be just as kind of just drawn in and surprised today to hear what you have to say. And, you know, oddly enough, when you type in your name in Google, which is a shame to me, it comes up with all of these small little 1-minute snippets about how you were charged and you were put in prison and all these things. And nothing, it's not a representation of the truth. It's not a representation of the facts. And so that's why we're here today to air this out, to get this out to the people. And a disclaimer in the comments, I vehemently disagree with anyone calling January 6th an insurrection. So please, I don't want to hear any comments about an insurrection. I'll probably skip over it. We need to get away from that. There was no insurrection on January 6th. We're going to go into some of that. This was a political imprisonment, a dereliction of justice. and we all know it. And every single day that goes by, we have more and more information out. So we are here to share these stories and to fight against these political narratives that they try to control us under. So, welcome to the show. I got a little bit more sharing. If you feel free to share this, like, subscribe, check this out. This is going to be a good one. So, welcome to the show, man.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it. I'm glad I'm here.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. It's how is North Georgia treating you?
It's pretty good. I got here yesterday. I came into Atlanta, which that's its own thing.
Oh, yeah.
But I got out of Atlanta pretty quickly too. So
that's good.
Not for nothing. So it's great being here, but also today is kind of interesting as well because technically I've been out of prison for exactly 60 days today.
Right.
So, and obviously a lot's happened since then. I've moved to the beach. I've dropped a almost 300-page book.
Yes.
I've probably done 50 interviews, a documentary, a bunch of other stuff. This is actually my first in person in a podcast studio.
Really?
Yeah. So everything else has been, just on the phone more or less, and
man.
So yeah, this is awesome.
I'm going to tell you, we talked about it a little bit earlier. It's Providence, and it's something that I would have never expected. And the very fact that I'm honored just to have you in the studio live. And we don't know each other. We've talked a couple of times. We've never met. And telling you the providence of the movement that we're in right now, the America almost going off the cliff's edge, and everything that we've been witnessing for the last 10, 12 years. And then, of course, January 6th, right?
Yeah.
So I cannot imagine what you have went through. And so I really want to, I want to hear it.
January 6th at the end of the day was just, enough of enough.
Right.
That's what it was. And, it was really any other typical Trump rally throughout the beginning of it. Nobody knew it was going to go in the direction that it went into. But again, I think, as many do, I think we personally were set up because it was very peaceful, just like any other Trump rally.
Right.
And then all of a sudden it just became not. But the not was really from the Capitol Police officers.
Right.
So, and then some bad instigators that were, and when I say instigators, these people that have been shown to be instigators, none of them were charged. They just kind of disappeared.
Ray Epps.
So, yeah, Ray Epps, for instance. Where is he at?
Now, did you have any interaction with Ray Epps while you were at the Capitol?
I did not.
Okay.
I did not. So, yeah, I didn't deal with him. But, even at, and this is just part of their lies. And when I was inside the building, with, and God bless her family, but Ashley Babbitt was shot while I was
Oh, my God, yes.
Now, I was not on that side of the building,
Right.
but you could hear the gunshot. And the first thing that the Capitol Police officers did is lied. They were on their radios and saying that one of the Trump supporters had shot somebody. So they were trying to create their own chaos.
Mm-hmm.
Now, inside that building, you could almost tell that some of these Capitol Police officers knew exactly what was going on.
Right.
And some of them didn't have a clue. Some of them were taking pictures with patriots.
Mm-hmm.
I asked the Capitol Police officer when I was in the building if I was allowed to be there. The response I was given was, yes, just don't break anything.
Right.
So, at that point, why am I going to walk out?
Right, right.
And I went down to the Capitol that day, and, we were listening to Trump. Honestly, it was almost hard to even hear him because it was packed.
Right.
There was probably 1 million plus people.
So yes, I want you to kind of break down that day what we know. I'm an info warrior. I've been keeping up, and I told you we were literally away from a phone call, renting a van. There was a group of us that were going to January 6th. It all fell apart at the last minute, but I'll never forget any of this. So Donald Trump wanted to walk down to the Capitol. Alex Jones was having his own.
Right.
There was a lot of people there. So can you kind of start from the beginning and tell us where you were where you were going? How did you make it to where you went in the Capitol?
So we were down listening to Trump again. We left a little early because we were at a part where, first of all, you could barely walk around. It took probably 45 minutes to get, 50 feet. It was that crowded. And so we started walking down to the Capitol because we knew the plan was to go down there and protest peacefully, no matter what. So we went down there. As we get down there, and I don't think that we were very first ones, but, you get down there and the first thing you see to the left of you is a bunch of food stands, which are not normally there. So it was almost like set up for the food stands to be there and everything else. And there was no barriers up anymore at this point or anything. And we were there really early. Now, my phone died, so the few Proud Boys that I was with at the time, we got split up. And I end up on the other side of the building, and they start gassing people.
Really?
Yeah,
you were
just,
yeah. Wow.
So we got gassed. This was outside the building, so that's the first of two times I got gassed.
So basically, down the stairs, you've got the barricades.
Yeah.
Y'all are there kind of in the front, and they start gassing.
They just start gassing people. I climb up this scaffolding once I start seeing people going into the building, and by the time I get over there by the door's being held open. So I walk in the door and go to the right into the rotunda area, and this is where there was kind of a lineup between the Capitol Police and different patriots. Now, it was, it was peaceful at that point too, until one of the Capitol Police officers gassed us again. And, at that point you got people just trying to get out the way. It wasn't about, assaulting police officers or anything like that. It was about getting out of the gassed area.
Right.
And, one thing that's in my paperwork that nobody wants to talk about because it goes against their narrative is one of the Capitol Police officers in that situation was going to go on the stand on my behalf because I kept somebody else from basically grabbing them. So I actually helped a Capitol Police officer out.
Wow.
But, nobody wants to talk about that. So,
of course,
we get gassed. I walk out the room and, I just get gassed. I'm already irritated. There's a sign in the middle of the floor that's sitting on the floor already broken. It's like a be quiet sign. And, I pick the sign up and I move it out the way. I move it out the way over my head, so I toss the sign. It wasn't one of my better moments, but again, it wasn't, I didn't throw it at anybody. I didn't, anything even remotely like that. And from there, I walk off. I get into another part of the building where there's a Capitol Police officer holding a patriot down on the ground.
This is inside.
Yeah, this is all inside. So I walk up to the Capitol Police officer and kind of get in the words with him to tell him to let this guy up because obviously he wasn't doing anything. At the time, I was a 245, 250-pound bodybuilder.
Right.
And the cop ends up letting him get up. Nothing physical happened in that, at all. He just ends up letting the guy get up, and after he let the guy get up, I walked off. Now, from there, I end up in a hallway that is offices. And I'm alone. I walk down that hallway. As I get halfway down the hallway, Schumer and his Secret Service team walk out of an office.
Wow. Okay.
And they grab him, and they snatch him through this doorway, and they lock the door behind him. Now, I didn't say anything to Schumer. I didn't start going faster. I didn't do anything. But his Secret Service, they went on the news and were saying about how I was just this imposing, violent person and all this stuff. And it's just like none of that actually happened. So that was going to be part of the problem if I would have went to trial, is I would have had literally Schumer's Secret Service going against me.
Wow.
And it's already not a juror of your peers. It's a juror of their peers.
Right.
So there was no winning. So I had to just, it was one of those, just stop the bleeding aspect of it. Now, I do end up taking a plea deal. Now, I'm in jail for about 10 months before the plea deal happens.
So, yeah, let's break that down. So, when did you go to jail? Did you go to jail that day, or were you able to exit the Capitol?
So, I exited the Capitol, but yes, I also went to jail that day.
Right, so they just snatched you up,
Yeah,
basically.
I got snatched up because they did a curfew.
Ah, okay.
And at the time, I lived in D.C.
Okay.
But we were also staying with a few of the Proud Boys at the Hamilton Hotel.
Right.
And sometime, maybe 6:37 after curfew, we're standing outside of the hotel, in a hotel that we're staying at.
Sure.
And I end up getting tackled by these cops.
Oh, my God.
And it's just for curfew. Now, there's a female that was with me at the time. They don't tackle her.
Right.
There's people across the street walking around. They don't go tackle them. So
they
looked at me.
They already knew who you were.
They either knew who I was, or at least I looked like a Trump supporter, which was good enough for them.
Right.
I had already talked to my cousin earlier in the day, and she told me, well, what happened with that when I left the Capitol? My cousin's kind of super liberal. So she calls me and she's like, are you there? And I told her no. And the truth was, I wasn't lying because I was no longer there. So an hour later, she calls me back and she's like, yeah, you lied to me. I just saw you on Fox News. So, yeah, they had already kind of figured me out, and it was going to go down one way or the other.
Right.
So it was either, and probably better off that they did pick me up for the curfew as opposed to coming and busting down my door.
Exactly. It would have been a lot worse.
So it could have been a lot worse. So now I got arrested for curfew, and from there they take me to the D.C. jail. And within, I don't know, an hour and a half of waiting for what I think is going to be a curfew ticket, even though I kind of knew something more was coming. Like, I mean, I had that gut feeling that I already knew they kind of knew who I was, but then it got real because I had two, I don't know if they were FBI or who they were, but they were not in police uniforms. They were in plain suits.
Gotcha. Okay.
They come and grab me out the line and take me to a room with a laptop, and they turned the laptop around and showed me a video of me in the Capitol. Now, again, I was a pretty big dude. It's not very hard to miss me. I also had the same clothes on, which was a cut-off freaking Punisher shirt. So, I mean, it was blatantly obvious it was me. It was a got you moment. I couldn't be like, yeah, that's not me.
Of course.
I mean, it was over with at that point. So, from there, they actually, I have to end up going and sitting in this holding cell with a bunch of other people being charged. And they put me in another holding cell by myself after that for some hours. And this is probably over a 24-hour period. In this other holding cell, there's just, you can't even sit down on the bunks because there's roaches crawling out the wall. And I mean, it was just disgusting.
Right.
But they end up taking me to the commissioner. So the way DC works is it's a no cash bail. So they're either going to let you out or they're not.
They're going to
OR you. Yeah, they're going to hold you or they're going to OR you. So they let me out, and I find out 2 days later that I'm getting indicted by the FBI. And that's kind of when everything went to, that's when it got even more real.
So basically 48 hours, and then
within
they
48
brought some
hours,
charges down.
Which is pretty unheard of for the feds to drop charges that quickly as well. So, pull a full indictment on me. It just, and I mean, they dropped like 8 charges on me. And it was definitely throwing crap against a wall. I mean, one of the charges was violent acts inside of a federal building. And I'm just like, what does that even mean? I walked too fast in the building?
Exactly.
I mean, like, what are you talking about?
And we all know the AOC narrative, right? She was in a completely different building when
Exactly.
she was,
Exactly. So, I mean, they pushed their narrative. I mean, they did that for the last few years. I mean, you guys have been watching the same 15 minutes of footage for years.
For years,
when
absolutely.
there's thousands of hours. And it's just because the majority of the footage is not going to go with their narrative.
That's right.
So they showed y'all what they wanted y'all to see. And the problem is on their side, the liberals are a bunch of freaking sheep. So whatever you tell them, they're going to believe.
Well, sure. I mean, the narrative that day, I'll never forget. We were watching it like crazy.
Yeah.
5 officers died. Got killed, and there were so many. People were bashing people in the head with fire extinguishers, and everybody was. They showed the worst possible angles of people going through, and then until we see the cops actually moving the barricades.
Yeah. Exactly. Wow. And I mean, so even like with the fire extinguisher part, they pushed that narrative for a while.
Yes.
And then they end up showing video of him later on, 45 minutes after it's supposed to happen, clearly unharmed.
Exactly.
So it's just, I mean, they lied to so many people, but like, these people on the left, they have such a hate for us and Trump and anything on our side that they don't even care if it's not true.
Right.
They just,
No, it's
just such a hate thing that they're delusional.
It's a derangement syndrome.
It really is. It's really kind of disgusting. But
is.
You can't. Just like when Trump just spoke about a month ago, and he's in the chamber and he says, "There's nothing that would make you guys stand." I mean, it's just truth.
Right.
There's nothing.
That poor kid with cancer.
Yeah.
They wouldn't even stand for that.
Wouldn't stand for that. I mean, he could have told everybody, by the way, you're all going to get a $10,000 check in the mail next week, because of Doge and all this, and they would have sat there pouting like little children.
Right. You're
because I mean that's what they are.
100%. It's so wild the times we're living in. All right, so here we are. You've been indicted. What happens next?
Well, I mean, from there, so I had already been doxxed from that city and lost my way of making money and all that. And that all came from my Proud Boy affiliation. Because,
of course, and we can go into that. You know, they're the Proud Boys. You know, I've been following them for a long time. I told you that somebody tried to dox me as a Proud Boy, and I would have gladly loved to have been a Proud Boy. I have no shame in saying that.
Yeah.
But I have much respect for Gavin McGinnis and Joe Biggs and the people I followed. So Enrique Tari. Did I say his last name? Tario. Yeah. Yes. So yeah, we're bashing these narratives. The Proud Boys are not a racist organization, racist group. I mean, but yes. So you lost everything.
Yeah, I lost everything, and again, like I couldn't even. I mean, I was getting death threats and everything else, and it's just I couldn't go anywhere. If I walked into a bar,
right,
I immediately,
especially in DC.
Yeah,
right?
I was immediately kicked out of a bar. So the only bar that I was able to go into is there was Harry's. Mm-hmm. Which was known as the Proud Boy Bar, and it was the one conservative bar that was by the White House.
Right.
That was probably the only place I was really welcome to go. So I did a lot of hanging out there for some months.
And just for clarification for my viewers, when you were indicted, they let you back out of jail to go to court, right? So they basically OR'd you, but indicted you, and so you're back out on the street.
I'm back out with it. They made sure I had an ankle bracelet on me.
Of course.
They gave me a curfew, which. Again, I couldn't get a job anyway, but I was a bartender, and it's just like, my argument's like, not for nothing. If you really think I'm such a violent and you're worried about me, what we did happened in the middle of the day. So I'm not sure what you think giving me a 9 p.m. curfew is going to do, other than you just trying to make my life miserable. You know, I mean, that's all it had to do with. Had nothing to do with safety or anything like that. So I stay in D.C. for about another 6-7 months. And I end up leaving D.C. I go to Virginia for not even a month, I think. And from there, I end up going to Nashville to spend my last, 6 months.
Okay.
I go out there, I get a job, no problem, bartending. Ironically, the owners of the bar were Democrats.
Wow.
But they were more moderate than anything else.
Okay.
And when I went in and asked for a job, I mean, I have 15 years of bartending experience, way more than any other bartenders. I could obviously run circles around their staff, and they figured that was more important than what was going on. And I was honest in the aspect of, I showed them on Google who I was immediately because I didn't want them to find out from somebody else.
Sure.
And, they were okay with it. So I ended up working there for the last few months before I finally was basically told to turn myself in within a few days because... They said it was for breaking my curfew, but they give me permission at that point to work.
Okay.
I have this ankle monitor on, so you know where I'm at.
Yep.
And their argument was, well, certain nights you get home later than others. Well, all right, so when you bartend at a spot, guess what? Wednesday night and Saturday night, you're slightly different times of what you're going to get off. One of them's going to be 3 in the morning, the other one's going to be 11 o'clock at night.
Right.
And they just, as soon as we said that, they brought the truth up, and they were just like, well, you said this on CNN. So it was really all about just shutting me up.
Right.
Because I had been on CNN at that point twice. I did a documentary with CNN. I did a documentary with ITV News out of London. I'd done HBO. So I'd done a bunch of stuff at that point. And the one thing that I was consistent with the whole time, and this is why they railroaded me, is... I would never go back on the way I felt. I said, look, the election was stolen. I mean, I even said that in my sentencing because I wasn't going to go against my beliefs and my morals just to appease them. I mean that's as communism as it gets.
100%.
Because that's what they really wanted me to do. They wanted me, and the prosecutors told me this, and even my lawyer was like, your charges will probably, you'll get a lot less time if you just... go and say, hey, Trump made me do it, and all this. And I was just like, yeah, go F yourself. I mean, that's what I told the prosecutor. I'm just like, yeah, I'm not doing that. And even so when they did tell me to turn myself in, it was over a Zoom call with the judge because I'm in Nashville at the time.
Right.
And, I start once he says, like, yeah, you got to turn yourself in, my response to the judge, and he almost was like, we're going to come pick you up right now. And I was just like, if you pay more effing time to the BLM rioters and Antifa.
That's right. The summer of love.
And stop worrying about people like me that are just patriots. And he immediately was like, do you still want to stay out for 4 days to get your stuff together, or should we just come pick you up? And I'm like, I'll take the 4 days. So now there was so much going on from the media at that point that they were making it a point to say that they didn't think I was going to turn myself in. They thought I was going to run.
Yeah.
To the point to where the judge even responded on the media and just said he better not run. If he does, it's going to be 10 times worse for him than he thinks it's going to be.
Right.
You know, and I had no thought process of even thinking of running.
Why would you?
I wasn't going to do that. So anyway, I turned myself in. And from there, there's a 10-month period of time where I think I went to like 9 places in 10 months.
Wow.
So what they call diesel therapy.
Right. So you'd been sentenced already.
No.
Oh, okay. You still haven't. So you just turned yourself in.
Turned myself in because they basically violated my pretrial.
Wow.
To shut me up.
Oh my God.
So again, I don't get sentenced for 10 more months after this.
Jesus.
And while they're doing this, they're bouncing me around all these different places. Mm-hmm. So the whole point of the diesel therapy is to make sure that you never get comfortable. Because if you're in one spot, a few things you can do. You can order commissary, you can have food, you can have clothes. There's certain stuff that you can get. Mm-hmm. Now, every time you move, everything you had, you lose. Man. So you can't really, you can't really like.
They were making it as hard as possible on you. They didn't want to give you any amenities whatsoever. The
first place that I was at, they only had me there for 2 weeks. And you couldn't even order commissary until after the first week. And they don't tell you when you're getting moved. Mm-hmm. So I get this $100 worth of commissary, and I'm happy because I'm like, some kind of real food. Mm-hmm. And I get told later that day, yeah, you're leaving tonight. So I had to just give all of it away. There's nothing, you can't take it with you, you can't do anything. And so I just wasted money that somebody put on my books to try to help me out. Mm-hmm. And I kind of learned my lesson from that later. Sure. But again, so I jumped all around. I went to like 3 places in Virginia. I went to Oklahoma twice. I went to Oklahoma at the beginning from Kentucky because.
But did they give you a reason why they were just moving you around halfway across the country?
They don't give one. They don't need one. They just do it to make you as uncomfortable as possible.
Man.
And so the last place I'm at, well, not the last place, but the place I was at when I finally took my plea deal, which, not for nothing, my court-appointed lawyer, I wanted to fight this thing the whole way.
Now, I don't mean to interrupt you, but I've been in bail bonding a long time. I tried to explain this a lot. RICO cases going on here. But people need to understand is when, there's a lot of people that don't know about the law and they say they want to come at you for taking a plea deal. But I don't think people understand how it works, especially somebody in your position. If you don't take these plea deals, all right, sometimes, I'm not saying 100% of the time, but they can make life so hard on you, they can take every single thing away from you and hurt you in ways you've never dreamed of. And I understand how some people can have to do this, or they're going to lose everything. It's not an excuse, but trust me, brother, I've been in this long enough, I understand.
Well, so I have my court-appointed lawyer trying to push it down my throat, too, because he obviously doesn't want to do any more work.
Yeah.
And they're threatening decades at me.
Of course.
When you take the plea deal, they drop your point system a little bit, too. So now, honestly, I ended up in one of the worst federal prisons in the country, so it wouldn't have really mattered. But they told me by taking the plea deal, it would drop my points down, and that would put me in a lower classification prison. Okay. So I'm thinking, okay, I'm not going to end up at the worst place. I'm just going to end up at, whatever.
Right.
And at that point, I'm still thinking I'm going to like a low security, maybe even a camp, because the plea deal I take it for obstruction of official court proceeding, which is a nonviolent charge.
Right.
And that's just, you'll hear where I end up. It's just that's not what they did with me.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking I'm getting these decades in prison if I don't do this. And then the other issue is, if I would have went to trial, I'm going to trial in D.C. Mm-hmm. It's not a juror of my peers. It's a juror of their peers. And they're just going to railroad me worse. So it's just, there was no way to beat them. Yes. They had a 100% conviction rate with us. It was a no-win situation. I'd already seen all these other people get, they couldn't beat their cases.
Right.
And they got, time. And I actually got more time than a lot of them did.
True.
And it was a lot just because I wouldn't bow down and say, Trump made me do it.
Exactly.
And, my lawyer's telling me, at this point I'm already in 10 months. So he's like, oh, you're probably going to get like 24 months or whatever. And you've already been in this long and you'll get good time and you'll get halfway house. Oh, you'll be out in less than a year, So I go to sentencing, and they give me 55 months. So I got still years left to go to prison. And they ask you, they're like, where do you want to go? You know, based on like family and all that. They tell you to list like 3 prisons. You know, I listed them. I told my reasons why I wanted to go there. One of them was really close to my sister. One of them was closer to my kids. And guess what? They sent me to none of them.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, I mean, it was just a show. They ended up sending me to McDowell, West Virginia.
Okay.
Which was bad. It was a pretty bad spot. But within 3 or 4 months, they decide that they want me to go to a drug program. And they send me to Beckley FCI, which is maybe an hour and a half away. It's really not that far away, but it's one of the most violent federal prisons in the country. There's only 2 federal prisons in the country that hold MS-13. I'm at one of them.
Wow.
A good majority of the guys that are in there for 20, 30, 40 years. A lot of them for murder charges. I worked in the kitchen. I worked beside this MS-13 guy that was literally in there for chopping 2 bodies up and disposing of them. And I'm in there for obstruction of an official court proceeding.
Man.
It's like, how do you put me beside this guy?
How can you justify that? That is insane.
Yeah, so I mean, that's what they did. You know, I really think they sent me there hoping something would happen to me.
Of course. They're doing everything they possibly can to put you in danger, to make it as hard and as crazy as possible. I mean, it's a travesty of justice, man. I'm telling you. Oh,
Yeah.
Okay.
So, you know, I go there and I kind of stick to myself for the most part. Now, everything's gang there, so it's blood, Crip, MS-13. Everything's run by gangs. The TVs are run by the gangs. I mean, that's what it is. So DC happened to be one of the bigger gangs in there. Now, being that I was from D.C. and I bartended for like 15 years in D.C., ironically, some of these guys knew me.
Okay.
And that's probably one of the things they didn't consider. So a lot of these guys end up having my back.
Right.
Go figure.
That's the way it works, right?
You know?
Of course.
So, because they're like, you know, I worked at a few relatively shady spots in D.C. that, you know, we had a lot of drug dealers come in. And go figure, a few of these drug dealers just happen to be at the prison I'm at. So all of a sudden, I already have this little bit of protection. So for the most part, I get left alone. But you know, the conditions there were horrible. People were getting stabbed on a daily basis. People got murdered there. People got raped. We were locked down probably half the time I was there.
Wow.
And you know, when you're locked down, they're sliding your food through your door slot. They'd let you out the shower like every 3 days, depending on what happened, like the violence level of why you're locked down at that time. You might be getting taken to the shower in shackles. They might be taking people to the shower based by race.
Right.
Just because it just depends on what happened.
Exactly.
And a lot of times these lockdowns, it's gang between gang. So there's always an issue when you're letting people out. So, I mean, it was a lot, you know. But you adapt.
Right.
It used to your circumstances, and you just kind of push through it. And I mean, that's what I did for a long time. So I ended up doing 37 months.
37 months.
Yeah, so...
Can you imagine at any point in time something drastic could have happened to you?
Yeah, at any point in time. And I had a few issues in there, you know, that they ended up turning into anything, luckily.
Right.
You know, but like you just said, it could have.
Absolutely.
So...
Wow, man. So I want to back up just for when you started bouncing around to the prisons, right? How were you accepted in going? And were they generally, did you have any sort of, just any sort of people supporting you, or even in the prison system when you were having to jump around? I mean, Oklahoma, Virginia, different places.
I mean, as far as the inmates, I mean, not so much. I mean, once I got to the final spot where I was there for a decent amount of time, you know, at that point, there was a lot of J6 organizations on the outside.
Yes.
That were doing stuff for us. And I mean, rather that was putting commissary on our books, or rather that was like with Patriot Mail Project. I mean, I was getting 20 letters a week, you know, from Patriots, just, you know, inspiring words more or less. And, you know, I would get books sent in. rather it was the Bible or it was I read a lot of history books while I was in there.
Right.
So, that was another way I used to pass my time.
Did you it's a tragedy to me that it took this long. It took an entire president, a new president to get you guys out of there.
Yeah.
A lot of us on the outside were constantly talking to our legislators, trying to make them understand, what we need to get these people out. These are political prisoners. So, did you have any contact? For example, we have a legislator in this area, Barry Loudermilk, that was actually on the J6 committee. I mean, did they help you guys out? Did you ever hear from these people? No, you didn't hear from them, huh? Because, they had all these fancy reports that they were releasing out everywhere, but I still find it.
We saw a lot of talk being had on the outside and
right.
Didn't see a lot of action.
Right.
We kind of had a little bit of insider information about the pardon.
Mm-hmm.
So we kind of knew more or less it was going to happen.
Right.
We definitely didn't know how fast it was going to happen.
Right.
Because I literally got out that day.
Got you. Oh, so you did.
Yeah.
So take us to that day. So you did have a little bit of heads up, but you just didn't know when.
Yeah.
So take us to that moment.
Well, the scary part was at that point we're listening to the media for days and they're not talking about the pardons.
Right.
And
of course
in that situation, like, you're trying to talk to yourself and tell yourself the best. And what I'm telling myself at that point is, they're probably not talking about it because they don't want to create all this riffraff with the left and they don't want them to try to block it or something, So that's what I'm telling myself. And then on January 20th, sitting there listening all day, not hearing anything about it.
Right.
Just crickets. And that's even on, like, Dan Bongino and Mark Levin, like, I'm not hearing anything. And so I listened to Dan Bongino that day, and, he talked about everything else, but that wasn't one of the things that happened. Now, Dan Bongino ended at 3 o'clock.
Okay.
Apparently our pardons weren't signed until 4:30, so he couldn't tell me even if he wanted to. Now, Mark Levin came on at 6. So I started listening to Mark Levin, and then around about 7:30, he plays the clip of him signing the pardon. And at that point, I just kind of like put my headset down, ran down to the phone, and typically you wait for like an hour and a half to get on these phones because of the inmates and the line or whatever.
Right.
But everybody respected,
sure,
the
absolutely.
fact. And so they let me jump right on the phone.
Got you.
I call my sister, and you're still even wondering, like, is it wishful thinking? Did I hear that right, or did I hear what I want to hear?
Right.
So I say it to my sister. I was like, I think I just got pardoned. And she's like, yeah, I think you did too. So I was like, all right, well, I don't know what to tell you, but I mean, I guess I'm getting out soon. Get off the phone with her. We lock down at 8:30 at night. I go and pack my stuff up just to do.
Right.
I figured, let me just get ready. Just who knows what's going to happen. Obviously, I can't sleep at that point. So I'm laying up in my bunk listening to music, just kind of zoned out. And I hear the guards walking through around about 11 o'clock. And they actually pass my cell at first and go to another cell. So I'm thinking they're grabbing somebody out for a urine test, for a drug test, because they do that in the middle of the night. And then he comes back to my door. He's like, oh, wrong door. And then as soon as he popped my door, like before he said anything, like I already knew what was going on. And he was just like, hey, Pruitt, grab your crap. It's time to go. So this is just hours later. And we were out the door within 2 hours.
Wow.
So now the ironic part is, like, they know we just got pardoned. And they take us down they put us in a waiting room at first while they're doing our paperwork. And then they toss us back in a cell.
What?
And I'm just like, you guys realize, like, what that pardon means. It means we're not even supposed to be here, and you guys have the nerve to lock me back in a cell right now?
Yes.
And, we were in there for an hour and a half, and then we got out the front door. So, I mean, but yeah, it was a whole thing. So.
Got free.
Yep. And so the only thing that has been a better experience than walking into the Capitol was walking out of prison.
Walking out of prison.
It was the most surreal thing ever. Because you don't really believe it until it's really happening.
Right.
I mean, even when you're in that waiting area, it's like, okay, I'm free. However,
exactly.
I'm still here.
Until you're outside
I'm still
of those
here.
walls.
You know, so like when we got out the walls, and it was just like, you don't even know what to think at that point.
I've never felt it, but you know, being a bondsman, I've dealt with that many times with people.
Yeah.
So, wow, man, it's wild. So, give me a little bit of just overall how do you look back on this experience, man? Would you have done it all over again? Would you have?
Absolutely, no question. I mean, I was there for the right reason.
Exactly.
The mass majority of everybody else was too, with the exception of the people they put there.
Exactly.
And we stood for the right thing. What they did, I don't feel bad about what I did. I feel bad about what they did to us.
You're 100%
because that's what it
right.
comes down to.
That's right.
So yeah, I mean, yeah, I stick with everything I felt about that day.
That's right.
I'd do it again if need be. I still believe the election was stolen, no question.
No question.
And that was in multiple ways. Rather it was stolen votes, or rather it was just the way they pushed the media.
Right.
So it was in more than just the votes.
Right. Well, I mean, not only are you correct, but I believe that a lot of this has to do with providence, right? If Donald Trump had have won the 2020 election, I don't think we'd know near as much as we knew. If January 6th hadn't happened, we would not be where we're at today. And it's almost as if these things are having to play out in order to wake up the conscience of America to realize how close to the cliff's edge we've fallen. And you're a casualty in that, you know? And, man, it's just, like I said, I've constant cold chills listening to your story.
I mean, when you say casualty, like, it's in a lot more ways than a lot of people think. It's like, I mean, you know, before I went to prison, or really just before all the political stuff, I mean, I was a 6-figure income bartender. I made great money.
Right.
And so, I mean, you can imagine, I lost all that while I was gone. I've been looking at opening my own bar at the time. You know, and none of that happened, obviously.
Right.
I lost my kids completely. I haven't talked to my kids in over 3 years because, well, their mom's a crazy liberal.
Yeah.
And when all this happened, once I got locked up, she stopped letting them talk to me.
Really?
She's never told them the truth, so they think I abandoned them right now.
You're kidding
So
me.
I have a 12-year-old daughter and a 14-year-old son. Well, they're both about to turn those ages in the next 2 months. And, you know, when I went away, they were children. They were 8 and 10. Mm-hmm. And they think that I just left them, to this day.
And you've not been able to speak to them?
I've talked to her. She won't let me talk to them.
You have got to be kidding me.
So I'm like trying to maneuver
sure
that,
Are
you know,
you
but
have
it's
legal
just,
help in that area?
I don't have the money for the legal help in that area. I mean, a lot of the reason why, you know, I did drop a book, and
right.
a lot of it's to try to get some regrounding.
Sure,
I mean, we did all just get pardoned, and I was on my feet before prison. I shouldn't have to come out and crawl to get back on my feet. It really shouldn't be a thing.
No, and just to clarify, this was a 100% pardon, right?
100% pardon. I'm no longer a felon, no nothing. Yeah.
And you've been dumped back out, and how on the world can somebody keep you away from your children? That would be pretty rough for me as well, sir. I mean, so, wow.
So, again, finances can be remade, but at the end of the day, 20 years from now, my kids are always going to look back, even if I got in contact with them right now, and be like, yeah, you left us when we were kids.
Absolutely. This is wild, man. This is so wild. So I want to share this, and we're going to be putting links up to in the description and everything that we share online. But this book here, this is your book. You want to tell us a little bit about it?
So it's called Trumped Up, you know, and you know that word means a lot of things. You know, I thought of that name because of my trumped up charges. You know, so it means so much, and the book's almost 300 pages. It goes into January 6th, obviously. You can't write 300 pages about one day. That's just not a thing. So there's multiple chapters of my prison experience, what goes on in prison, all the lead up to January 6th. And I mean all the lead up. Like, it goes into my childhood and my upbringing and basically what put me and made my belief system.
Sure.
You know, a lot of people, and I said a lot of stuff in my childhood that a lot of people probably wouldn't tell about themselves. And I just didn't care. I wanted the truth to be out there. I just didn't care. A lot of people, you know, look at me and they're like, oh, he's just some privileged whatever. Look, my parents were heroin addicts. My mom died of an overdose when I was 6. there's nothing privileged about me.
Right.
You know, everything I did throughout my life, I did it on my own.
Sure.
You know, and I have my ups and downs, and it goes through that. You know,
Absolutely.
I tell about my vices in there. You know, I go through it all, and it's just because I want my real story out there.
Well, I mean, that's how you reach people, and not all of us. You know, this collective liberalism that is under that. No matter what, you fall out of line. You know, we all have different backgrounds, different ways. You know, I grew up as the '90s like punk rock grunge kid. You know, I'd be the last person to tell you I'd be doing a podcast like this,
right.
But we need to tell our stories in order to bring more people into the fold. Let them know that you can step out of that group think mentality and stand up for yourself, especially when it's this close to the cliff's edge.
Yeah.
So
I agree.
Well, man, we'll go to comments here in just a second, but now that you're a free man, fully pardoned, you're out here, you're going to have to make your own way. What do you see? How do you see the current state of America and moving forward from where we're at?
I mean, I see everything kind of on the up and up. I mean, I think we still got some bad characters that we got to get out of the government.
Yeah.
But it looks like, you know, we have the right people in place to make that happen, whether it's Cash Patel or Pam Bondi.
Yes.
You know, and Dan Bongino, a lot of these people, you know, I think are the right people to be in there. And, you know, Elon Musk. I mean, that's why they're so scared of all this, because they know these people can't be bought, you know, and they're going to push them out. I mean, and that's why they needed to steal the 2020 so badly, because all they're doing is buying time. They're buying time.
You're 100% right about that.
So, and time's up.
Exactly.
So it's time for others to start getting indicted.
Sure.
And these Democrats that did what they did to us need to find a set of the same shackles that we are in.
Right. Well, not only do I agree, and I am one of the patiently awaiting for some arrests, right? We've got a brand new administration, but I expect there to be more January 6th, some of the tapes to drop, some of these people to be held accountable. I've heard that they destroyed a lot of their evidence that didn't fit their narrative.
Yeah.
I hope and pray that this Trump administration faces that full steam on and the American people get the truth.
Yeah.
Because what was sold to us, we know, was a teetotal lie. So, wow, man. I mean, what a wild story. And I just want to say thank you for being one of the ones that have stuck through this. So many J6ers. I know when I told them yesterday, I kind of kept it hid till we were 100%, but they're super excited. And we're going to do another episode with some of my community members that were there, so we can tell their story too. So,
well, you know, back to the whole prison thing. I mean, they sent us to a lot of bad places where they wanted to break us, and prison didn't break me, but it did piss me off.
There you go.
You know, and that's where I'm at with it, and that's why I'm as vocal as I am, and that's why I'm going to keep going. It's it would be all for nothing if I just tucked my tail right now and ran.
That's right.
So I'm just not going to do that.
100%, and we're 100% behind you. I hope maybe you'll look at a run wherever you're going to end up. Maybe you can get into some politics. Maybe you can get into a representative role where we can get better people that are not willing to just cower down, and we can make and enforce the laws we need to keep things like this from happening, sir.
Yeah.
So, all right, guys, we're going to go through. There's a lot of comments, but I'm not going to keep him too much longer. He's got somewhere to go. So thank you, Carol, for being with us. Thank you so much, Sharon. Thank you, Conservative Rebuttal. We got a share on that. Stephanie Morrison says, Josh Love, is that your sister?
Basically,
gotcha. Okay,
she's mentioned in the book too. I mean,
gotcha. I think I connected with her last night. So Naha, who was another fellow J6er, a close friend of mine, he says he's going to catch the show after work. Awesome. Thank you, Brandon Maddox, for sharing. Conservative Rebuttal says Lucretia Hughes, information impossible guest for your broadcast. Absolutely. So, if you don't know who Lucretia Hughes is, you've got to meet her.
Okay.
So, wonderful woman. He also says, Nancy Pelosi, we know what you did, and you should rot in prison. Lord, that's probably the mic drop of the day. I mean, these Democrats. I mean, look, I'm a Republican. I'm a conservative, all right? Yeah. But I'm calling out the uni-party here because, yes, the Democrats are absolutely horrible. Well, last I checked, we had Republicans that should have more backbone to be able to have gotten these guys out sooner. We shouldn't have had to have a presidential election in order to pardon them. And we've got some serious problems because our president faces the war of his lifetime, because every single thing that we have been celebrating since January 6th is getting stopped by a dime store federal judge going in and blocking him, a George Soros federal judge. And we're going to have to figure this way out forward.
And not for nothing, again, like you said, there's Republicans too. Like,
that's right.
Pelosi needs a cellmate, and I think it should be. I think it should be Liz Cheney.
Absolutely, I second that 100%. So, Lisa Adams, who's here with us in studio, thank you, Lisa. Good to see you. All right, conservative rebuttal at Taylor Briggs. He's shared it. Let's see. Love the Proud Boys. Defenders of America. Yeah, absolutely, man. Like I said, I got accused of being a Proud Boy, and I didn't even have the privilege. So, let's see. Stephanie Morrison replying, Christopher Rayleigh, good to see you. And he said, you didn't flee to Africa. I guess he's talking about Hunter Biden, who just got his security clearance revoked. Yeah. Thank you, Laura Loomer, for doing that. And he says, if only you were a Fed like Ray Epps. I mean, Ray Epps, goodness gracious, I'm going to just stop on that for a second. The biggest plant in the history of anything I've ever seen, Ray Epps, all of the videos out. I mean, it is insane. And it makes my blood boil. You're telling me you cannot talk to your children when literally anybody can watch a 5-minute clip of Ray Epps and realize that this was teetotal BS. Yeah. I'm telling you, man, it's insane. So... He said he also says the FBI had 16 ops on the ground. In fact, they probably had more than that.
I think it was probably more than that.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, we saw people changing into Trump clothing.
Absolutely.
The other thing we saw is the day before, we found a pallet of bricks that was under a tarp, and that was over by the White House, which was Freedom Plaza, where Trump was speaking.
Wow.
Now, we reported it, and next thing you know, the bricks disappeared.
Of course, that's the George Soros.
And just
bricks.
think about, exactly. Yeah. So they had their plan.
You're right. What do we know about the National Guard? Nancy Pelosi was the one who blocked the National Guard from doing their. She had a cameraman there that day following them around. Yeah. Man, we could go on forever. He said they deleted videos and files. We absolutely know that's right. Let's hope that we get what's left. He says Pelosi's on video saying she was at fault. Yeah, well, I remember that video down the hallway. Absolutely. And Stephanie Moore says their hatred is bigger than the love for their country. Yeah, I don't disagree with that.
I mean, they don't love the country at all. I mean, that's the thing. There is no love. It's sad when I can just tell somebody else is a patriot if they have a flag.
Oh, sure.
Because none of them will even show our flag.
They won't show our flag.
And I mean, that's they're American hate at its best.
These people are so anti-American, they're killing our Constitution right now. With this constitutional crisis, I mean, don't get me started. These people are scum of the earth. Look what they're doing to Tesla, for God's sakes, when Elon Musk was the chosen one, the Einstein of our generation. And now because he's doing a Doge and he's trying to clean our government, you're burning down Tesla dealerships?
Well, it's like somebody said to me the other day, they were like, the Constitution, it doesn't need to be rewritten. It needs to be reread.
You're 100% right. 100% right, sir. Yes. All right. Conservative rebuttal says FBI is blurring your feed. Your camera isn't clear. Roy Hambrick, I don't doubt that. Hey, we deal with it all, but guess what? We're recording this, so they can't do nothing to me unless they kick my door in. So, Dana Bridges Tate says, replying, Stephanie, absolutely. We go through a couple. Stephanie remembers that day. Same story, different victim from Chris Rayleigh. He says, I'd like to point out L.E. did this to him. Next time they say back the blue, you know what it means. So, all right. There we got William McMillan in the house from Savannah. Thank you, sir. Justice for Gwinnett. Good luck tomorrow, Justice, at your convention. We are rooting for you. He says it's insane that for 55 months this man was imprisoned by a weaponized justice system. 47 changes lives again. Amen, man. Amen. And let's see. Another lesson for men. Another lesson, men, women will ruin your life. I think he's talking. Oh, Lord, we're going to touch that one, Chris. William Blake McMillan says, no, your kids will see your wife for what she is, and they will run back to you. Look, man.
So that's part of the issue with that situation is that, I was talking to her the other day, and she's, we need to get them a counselor to reintroduce them. Look, that's not her real reason. Her real reason is that she knows that when they talk to me, they're going to be mad at her because they're going to find out that she lied to them. That's what it's going to be.
You're 100% right. Man, that's tragic. Carol Streeter says, ask him if he was denied to see a warrant, allowed his one phone call, and allowed to take his cell phone for evidence. That is what they would do to me, so I would just be sitting there saying what just happened to me and how since I never been in trouble. So did you even have Miranda rights or anything? You said you were pretty much taken down at curfew.
I mean, my Miranda rights were for the curfew.
Right.
I mean, I never got any, like, separate for the indictment.
Right.
And yeah, they kept my phone for curfew.
I got you.
I literally didn't get my phone back. So they kept my phone before I was even indicted by the feds.
Wow. Okay.
So, and that's when I knew that it was coming.
Yeah, I mean,
so
like they're following the law in the first place, right? I mean, they knew who you were. They had you on video. They were going to take you in regardless. And then we don't even have a justice system that would even address that. So, yeah, absolutely. But good question, Carol. And let's see. Of course, Christopher Ray says Fannie was colluding with the January 6th committee. Yeah, she's colluding with a lot of stuff, a whole lot of stuff. He says the Hunter Biden laptop should have sent Hunter to prison. No cops were used then, though, of course. Yeah. You know, they busted down Roger Stone at like 4 a.m, but Hunter Biden's over in Africa with security detail.
Probably smoking crack.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Christopher Radley said, I was ready to become a Democrat to avoid prison. And Lisa says, thank you so much, Roy. Thank you for having Josh.
Thank you, Lisa. She's the one that set everything up. And
absolutely.
Even with me speaking tomorrow.
Yeah, so you're going to be speaking at the Whitfield County Republican Convention, which is awesome. I can't wait to see the video for that. And like I said, man, I always give my people the last word, and before I do, I just want to tell you how appreciative I am that you came on the show, and we're going to get this story out everywhere, and you had to go through a really rough patch. A lot of people did, and we the people thank you for standing up, because I still get cold chills thinking I could have been the very same spot, and for whatever reason, we weren't able to make it.
Yeah.
But I'm just telling you, man, you guys did nothing wrong. This was not an insurrection. I pity anybody who calls it that. And we need to use your story as an inspiration for moving forward and bringing back America strong. Yeah. So, but I'm going to give you the last word. What do you want to say?
I mean, I just want to say thank everybody, for helping me get my word out there and everything. And, the whole thing's a struggle, but it's coming together. Please buy the book.
Yes.
I was, right before all this happened, I was looking at opening a bar in the D.C. area, which obviously I could never do that now. But, if this book does the way I want it to, I'm still going to open a bar, but the concept's going to be all political. I'm going to name it 1776 Pub.
There you go.
And, piss some more people off.
That's right. We've been talking about trying to open up a restaurant like that, just like a restaurant bar type thing.
Yeah.
That would be freaking awesome. Have like InfoWars instead of the soccer game, and Dan Bungie.
Exactly.
That would be great. I'm telling you, it would be a hit, man. All right, folks. Well, we're going to go ahead and end it now. We've actually made it under an hour. I can't believe that. We'll be posting links to the book in as many places as we can. You can like, share, subscribe. I'll have it up on YouTube here in a little bit. And I know it's a little slow during the afternoon, but this thing's just gonna go sky high. So y'all keep sharing it, and let's get Josh's story out. Again, man, we thank you for being here
Absolutely.
in studio. And you guys have a wonderful evening. I'll probably drop something this weekend. I'm working on something. So thank y'all, and I'll see you soon.
Legislature legalized unverifiable voting in 2000.
Like you said, to Trump, but they're getting beauty.
They said, go out there and rob these houses and bring back the bounty, and then that'll pay your way.
It's up to Republicans to get endorsement from Georgia carriers that they mean anything.
You can't sit on the sidelines any longer. You must get involved in the game. This is your sign.